Hi, my name is Kara Uzelman. I'm a visual artist and I live and work in the rural community of Nokomis, Saskatchewan. Finite Dimensions, the show, I really wanted to work with locally sourced materials. So in part, a lot of the work is inspired by the lives of plants, which gather everything they need from the things that are around them without having to move. So all the work in the show, the materials have all been gathered from the area directly surrounding my studio. It was like right after the pandemic started, and so with all the shutdowns and everything happening in the world, I really wasn't sure how I wanted to approach the work. And I was reading a book called Nation of Plants, which brought forth a premise: all living beings grouped together to approach the United Nations, and it was from the perspective of plants. And so some of the ideas that the author was bringing forth in the book were around taking inspiration from plants. I thought that was like a really cool idea in the midst of the pandemic, when we're kind of locked down and we can't travel, to just gather everything, try and be creative and work with the space that I have. A lot of the work in the show comes out of the backyard, and I started with digging these holes and gathering this actual material, the earth from the backyard, and working with that. From there, built up the rest of the work. The interesting thing is, as I was working in the backyard, it was really cool because I started with the dig, so I dug the holes, which I gathered the earth material to make some large-scale sculptures with. And then started working with other materials from the yard. And I think it's super fun when you bring things down so simply, because I feel like there's just so much more to explore. Once you start looking, it is kind of really opens up. So even though it's a finite space, there are kind of infinite ideas that you could work with. This piece, it's from a series taken on winter solstice, and the sun is very low in the sky, so my yard is completely in shade all day at that time of year. So I wanted to work with mirrors and sort of bring some sunlight into the yard, and also idea of documenting time and movement, as well as photography is in itself capturing light. So I wanted to kind of directly work with the light on that day. And so these are composite images, so elements in the image were taken at different times. An concept that I've been thinking about a lot when working in all this work is how time is completely related to movement. If there's no movement, there's no way that we can really see time passing or experience time passing. Also, movement in terms of forces that shape the world. I think movement is also something I'm interested in. So if you think of human activity on Earth, we're always moving things around, and as we move across the earth, we're moving things, collecting things. There's a term that they use when they're building roads, where they call the material to build a road borrow. So it's as if the material that they dug out of one place is going to be borrowed and returned, and then they use it to build a road. But I just find it funny. I don't know, I just think these ideas of how the universe is shaped through movement, which is very related to time as well. There is thematically through a lot of the work kind of themes around value. So that kind of has to do with the whole idea of obsolescence too, because as time passes, And so money becomes less valuable, that's one thing, and like older technology becomes less valuable. So there's this idea of like human use. So like even though say like a penny isn't useful to us anymore, it's still like the same material, and it still continues to exist in the world in some form, like whether we assign value to it or not. And same with like a radio, even if you throw it in the garbage or whatever you do with it. So it's like kind of exploring the next life of like these obsolete objects, or objects that have no use value to humans anymore, but they still continue to operate. I just started more consciously saving all my pennies and collecting pennies until I had like jars and jars of pennies. And then I actually made that piece before the penny was taken out of circulation. So it's been melted back into a nugget type form. And then in some ways you could think about it just like being put back into the earth where it came from originally. It was a quote from a man who is a conservationist, and he's involved in trying to keep the American chestnut tree from going extinct. And it was just something, when he said that, it was something that rang so true to me and made me think like, yeah, that's what I would want to do too. It just made me kind of like rethink like, well, if that's what I would want to do on the last day on Earth, like maybe that's what I should be doing every day. I think it's just like a gesture of like attempting to repay like the materials that I've used, and to like, yeah, again, like thinking about value and yeah.